right? Like one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship is like use what you've got. And so a lot of people think that they need to fix their conditions in order to get like the perfect conditions before they start. But the perfect condition is whatever one you're in, because it gives you whatever assets you have. That's the cards that you're dealt.
If I have somebody who's really good at fixing cars, they're like, well, it's not that hard. You just, do a little screws here. Like I wouldn't pay anybody for that. Like I do it for free. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it. And I would pay you a lot to do it because I don't want to fix my car. And so because it's been easy for you, you think it's easy for everyone. And because you think it's easy for everyone, you're not willing to charge a lot for it.
Real talk, the tweets that I have, people don't know this, but the tweets are notes to self. So they're just directed at me so that I can look back on them and like be reminders of like, hey, don't do that. And so like, I think to myself, man, I'm afraid of doing this. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm afraid of what this person's going to think about me. Because if I were to be able to fail in quiet, in complete isolation, then I wouldn't care. And then I think, well, what if I don't succeed in public? What do they think then? Nothing, right? They don't think about me at all. And so obviously that comes from the perspective of seeking to gain approval and attention from others anyway. So it's like, listen, if you're insecure, which everybody is, let's be real, you might as well use the insecurity to get something out of it, right? Like one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship is like use what you've got. And so a lot of people think that they need to fix their conditions in order to get like the perfect conditions before they start. But the perfect condition is whatever one you're in, because it gives you whatever assets you have. That's the cards that you're dealt. And so you just play the hand. And a lot of people have great cards. It's like, man, I'm so afraid of, it's like, use it. It's like, I have nothing. What makes you very dangerous because you have nothing to lose. One of the really interesting things I think about it from a business perspective, but it probably applies to everything, is that there's always an advantage and a disadvantage from every position, right? So like I remember Gym Launch is still a big company and still continues to grow, but in the gym licensing space, there's not many people who can compete with us there, right? And I would talk to guys who are in the space, I'd talk at a conference, whatever, and younger guys would be like, well, I want to be in this space too. And it's not fair because, you have this big advantage. And I was like, you have a way bigger advantage than I do. I was like, because if I were in your position, I would go to every single gym owner and be like, you don't want to be with Gym Launch. You don't want to be with Alex. You're just a number to him. Like, you're never going to talk to him. Like, you're just a cog in the wheel there. With me, you're going to get my personalized attention. There is just some employee down the chain that's following some process, right? I was like, but on the flip side, if I'm talking to that same gym owner, then I'm going to say, you don't want to talk to Jimmy. He lives in his mom's basement. He has no proof that he's good at what he's at. The reason that we're number one in the space is because we've done it so many times and we have a system that we know that if you go on this side, you will get this result on the outside. I was like, there's always a position and there's always an advantage. I was like, you just have to play the one you've got. And most people just look at what everyone else's advantage is and don't think, which one do I have? It's kind of like investing. Like, everyone's afraid of losing money when they invest, but the only guaranteed investment that doesn't work is never investing to begin with. And so it's like they take the long failure rather than the short one, right? I mean, it's what it is, right? You just fail long. And they're like, I prefer that. But it's like you and I are going back and forth on trying to figure out how many different ways can I say that either the people that you're worried about judgment are going to die, or that you're going to die, or that even if you do achieve the thing, they won't care anyways. Or if you don't do anything, they won't think about you to begin with. And don't you want to be thought about to begin with? Like, don't you want some level of significance? You're going to die. And I think I was very grateful that, so one of my biggest inspirations or whatever, influences when I was in Baltimore was I would have lunch with my grandfather 3 times a week. So he was 90, old guy. So I would go to the nursing home and we'd have lunch 3 days a week. And listening to him talk about the regrets that he had in life, it's so much more painful to watch someone who has no options left. Like, he's going to die. I mean, he's going to die tomorrow. And he died a couple of years later. I mean, and he lost all his mental faculties, almost sadly. Basically, when I left Baltimore, one of the sad parts is I was one of the only people that kind of like kept him lucid. You know what I mean? And after that, no one really visited him. No one really did anything. And so I think he just rolled downhill. I think the lunches might've been the only thing that he looked forward to. And seeing someone old with no options and nothing but regret. Now, not that he had everything to regret. He had things that he did really well, and I took those things from him. He would repeat the same lessons. Like every lunch, let's be real, a lot of older people kind of repeat a few key lessons. And everything that he fled during the World War II. He fled from the Germans and all that stuff because he had a Jewish sounding last name. He wasn't, but it was enough that he was fleeing, right? And he always used to say, he's like, you have 2 hands and 1 brain. He was like, use them. That was always his thing that he said to me. And I think just like when I would think about the things that he was going up against compared to the things that we're going up against now, it just made me feel like all right, like this is not as big of a deal as I really think it is. I don't have Germans at my door. He would have spent, I mean, again, there's deathbed regrets and then there's real life regrets, but there's things that he would have done differently in terms of the business. There's things he would have done differently with his wife. He got divorced, he would have done things very differently with his kids. So my mother, and her sisters, which actually talking to him about how he raised my mother helped me in some way forgive her for some of the things that I felt were wrongdoings that she had done to me. And so it's funny because, one of my favorite quotes from Blaise Pascal is to understand is to forgive. And like when you, I think there's another saying that I like a lot, which is it's really hard to hate close up. It's like if you really see someone and you see all the things that they went through and the things that happened to them to become who they are, then you understand them and then you understand why they did X, Y, and Z. Because if we don't understand, we assume that it's because they're just evil people. And most people aren't that way. They're this way because they've been reinforced or punished for doing something like that in the past. And especially for her, she was reinforced for acting a certain way over and over and over again to the point that it was core to her character. And so when that got put on me, I was like, I hate you, you're terrible, you're evil, like blah. But like, when I looked at it on a much longer time horizon of like, she was 4 years old when she came here. She couldn't speak English. She got beat up as a kid, like all these things. I'm like, you know what? Maybe give her a little grace, And I remember when I came back and it was right around that same time where I realized I was giving this person all this power. She yelled at me for something when I came back home from college, my freshman year. And it was a standard fight, like here's the button that I press to get into the normal fight that we get into. I just remember she hit the button and I just like wasn't that upset. And it's like, I felt nothing. She like hit the button, she like hit it again harder. And I was like, I just remember looking at her and being like, I get it. I'm sorry. Like you had a tough life. And then she just broke down and, started crying because it was like she felt understood. And I think, I know that was a roundabout way of getting back to regrets, but he regretted how he had raised her. But through his regrets, I got to see why she was the way she was. And then it diffused the bomb that was between me and her.
But if we had to compare two companies, let's say we have company A and company B. All right, we got company A and company B. They both are selling 100, new widgets a year. Okay. Let's say company B loses all of the 100, but they want to double because it's an entrepreneur. He's like, I got to grow. And so he sells 200 people year two. Well, then let's say he's got $2 million in revenue and he's got $1 million in revenue here. And let's say year three, he sells 300 units. He lost all 200 again because he has no stickiness. And so he makes $3 million. Okay, cool. Now, let's say this company A sells 100 year one, they make $1 million. They keep all 100 customers, okay? But let's say that company keeps the same number of people they're selling new. So 100 new customers come in this year, but they keep their old 100. So now they also have 200 customers and do $2 million. And then year three, they keep their same 100 and then the 100 from year two. So now they have 300 total customers because they got 100 new and they have 3 million. So both of these businesses on paper, your entrepreneur friend comes to you and says, hey, I've got a $3 million business and I've got a $3 million business. Which one do you invest in? They try to find in one person what they can more easily find in three. And so you're going to see that in the bottom line getting compressed. And this is where, growth at all costs becomes a problem. But for this entrepreneur, he spent the time to figure out how to get all 100 customers to stay. Now, if he encounters your distribution or my distribution, and then all of a sudden we say, great, now I know that I can bring this thing 10,000 new customers, then this thing becomes a $1 billion business. Because we solved the most important part first, which is that the revenue stays. And so when people build in a rush, they don't build a good enough thing. And so as a result, you scale really quickly. And this is where knowing marketing and sales can be dangerous because the better you are at marketing and sales, the faster you can grow revenue. But you get to a point where you have a certain velocity of sales. I can only sell 100 people or 200 people or 500, 1,000 people a month, whatever it is. And at that point, you either have to always be seeking more distribution because you have a hole in the back of your bus, but the moment the sales stop, the business craters. And I would say that is more common than the alternative, which is that you actually have a sticky business. Or this is going to be so bad. Here we go. So we've got our, all right, here we go. We'll give it a little hoof, maybe some tail. Here we go. And here we go. And we need to have some sparkle, right? Because it's a unicorn special. Okay, it's got a little donk there. But they're trying to replace themselves with a unicorn, but there are no unicorns, and we know this. And so they go through interview, and then they never find anybody because they can't find a unicorn. But if you're like, how do I find an animal that's got a horn? Well, you can go find a rhino. Okay, I've got a rhino, they've got the horn. It's like, okay, and then I need a horse. Well, I can go find a horse. And then I got to find the sparkle. So I'll get some fireflies for the sparkle, and then I'll get a horse for the horse. And so just like that, instead of saying, someone has to live my exact life and have gone through the exact same trial and tribulations to figure out all the unique things that I know, it's like, no. if you could go back in time, you could teach yourself in a tenth the time because you know all the mistakes that you made and the right things that actually ended up working. So it's like, great, instead of taking 10 times as long you did to learn it the first time, go back as though you were teaching it the right way. Now, you and I do this every day, and we're like, all day we do this one, not this one, because next year, he's got to go and sell 600 new customers. Now, where this gets, you can start seeing this in the financials because I can tell you that the cost of getting 300 new customers costs significantly more than the cost of getting 100 new customers and having 200 customers that are existing and still paying you. This is an interesting one because a lot of times if I have the same response where someone says, hey, I'm running out of time, the first question I'll ask is, what's your margin? That's the symptom, but not the root cause. The root cause is either that their offer is incorrect and that what they're offering, the price and the terms of their delivery are too low compared to each other. You're offering too much for too little. I think what we feel we deserve matters the least in that. I think it's all about what the customer is willing to pay. And so one of the hardest parts for newer entrepreneurs is they sell out of their own wallet. And I think that is one of the most, just like when a customer buys from you versus just consuming your free stuff, their identity completely changes. They're now a customer, which means they're far more likely to purchase future things from you than somebody who's not bought something. That's why, ascensions and renewals are much easier than getting somebody to buy the first time, right? And so I think to the same degree for us as entrepreneurs or people who aspire to be an entrepreneur, it's like, go make the first dollar. And then as soon as you have that taste of like, oh, this isn't, I actually grabbed the corner of this thing. I understand. I just got to get them to give me money to do something. Or I can build something and then have them buy it from me. And then I have to figure out how to build more of them, right? If it's a thing. But like, that's it at the most basic level. And everything else is just, is confusion. And so they get into this vicious cycle of undercharging and having not enough margin. And then as a result, having to do more of the work. And then if they get more work coming in, they don't want to say no. And so then they basically fill up their entire plate so they have no excess capacity, but that they don't have the time to train anyone. They don't have the time to interview. They don't have the time or the cash, right? To for the next person. And so usually when someone's like, I'm overwhelmed, if I say, do you have a lot of margin? Then either, yeah, you're running 70% margin, dude, like hire some help. If they don't, then it's 2 or 3 steps earlier where the offer's wrong, the sales motion's wrong, which typically they're mispriced. It is not the business's job to solve your emotional needs to somebody else. And so you can collapse the time it takes to teach someone how to do the job. And most times, what founders are looking for is a unicorn, right? They're like, okay, I have 2 employees and I do everything. And so I need to hire someone who's just going to be like me and just do everything else. It's like, it's not going to work that way. And so I use this little analogy that I like, which is, so we have our horn of the unicorn. If they have really thin margins, they can't afford to get help. I think it's ego. I'm guessing that they want to talk to me about business stuff. And so this is the only business related thing that they can talk about. And so that's probably why they talk about it or they bring it up. Or they want to feel like in some ways it's kind of like productive procrastination, or that I'm going to somehow give them one answer that's going to like finally get them over the hump of starting. But we are not as unique as we think. Have the ability to process money and then ask a stranger if you can do something for them in exchange for money. As soon as you do those 4 things, congratulations, you're a business owner. I think we want to be special, and I think we like to be needed. And I think that, or you don't have a marketing or sales motion that allows that value to be demonstrated to someone so they'd be willing to pay a premium. And so it's like, if I have somebody who's really good at fixing cars, they're like, well, it's not that hard. You just, do a little screws here. Like I wouldn't pay anybody for that. Like I do it for free. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to do it. And I would pay you a lot to do it because I don't want to fix my car. And so because it's been easy for you, you think it's easy for everyone. And because you think it's easy for everyone, you're not willing to charge a lot for it. To entrepreneur, the person who's highest up should have the highest standard. And if somebody ever gets to a point where they have a higher standard for ACU than I do, they should run it, not me. It's exactly that. It's just, and I think in some ways there's an ego element that I think is very reinforcing, which is that I'm so special, no one can do what I can do. And I think that's a very attractive lie that we like to believe. If that's what you want, like go for it. Yeah, I just like, I think there's gonna be a lot more solopreneurs, in the coming future. There already are. I think it's a goal question. It's what do you want? I was about to say, like, has there ever been something that you don't know how to do? Well, whenever I approach something that I don't know how to do, it always feels amorphous. It's like this big thing, and I don't know where to start. Like, how do I grab onto a piece of it? And so, having gone and attacked like these amorphous things like start a business, which actually means nothing, you have to break things down to much smaller steps of action. That's why, for me, the most basic thing to start a business is like, get an LLC. The business's job to serve the customers survives. Because if you're the one responsible, then you have to be the one who determines what is good enough. Open a bank account. You've already beaten like 95% of people and you've also changed your title from entrepreneur. Oh, my bar wasn't high enough. Most people start because one, starting feels like this very amorphous thing. I think at the most basic level, like, what is the job? Like, if you remove everything else, what survives? And I think holding the standard